Well, good morning. We continue with our conversation with political analyst Prince Mashele after the resignation of President Jacob Zuma to try and make sense of it all. I see this morning on Twitter there are pictures of the ANC president, Cyril Ramaphosa, jogging in Cape Town. Does he have every reason to be celebrating, to be jovial this morning?
He has every reason to be jovial. This is a man who, for many years, has been wanting to be president of South Africa. You will recall that actually Nelson Mandela had said that he preferred Cyril Ramaphosa to take over from him. But of course, there was an intervention from the elders of the ANC and Thabo Mbeki became president. So I am sure as he was jogging, he had a flood of memories entering and exiting his head. So this is his final hour.
Mm-hmm. And what we say about Cyril Ramaphosa's presidency, what is it that we can expect? Will he have a smooth run? Also considering that you have the EFF that will still remain in parliament and probably be an obstacle for him.
Cyril Ramaphosa is lucky and unlucky at the same time. He is lucky in the sense that he takes over the reins after a man who took South Africa to the bottom. It is impossible to go further down. South Africa can only go up. So there is a supportive public mood out there for Cyril Ramaphosa to succeed. But is unlucky at the same time. He takes over a thoroughly divided ANC. He has, for example, a dodgy deputy DD. He has, for example, a very dodgy Secretary General of the ANC. He has to deal with those elements while trying to provide clarity and leadership. It's going to be bumpy and it's going to be complicated. Those people are going to fight.
Mm-hmm. But the opposition as well, because you know that the issue of the Marikana issue, I believe that it might be revived yet again and it might become even more louder this time around. And you can't have a situation, I was saying earlier on, you can't have a situation where you have the president of the country who has a no-go zone, which is Marikana in the northwest, because he's never been there and he has never apologized to the people of Marikana. He has apologized in parliament, but he's never gone to the people who are actually affected by that incident that happened about, in 2013?
Here is the thing about Cyril Ramaphosa. When you are number two, you can avoid the spotlight. When you are number one, all the spotlights are focused on you. So we will see small skeletons being dug out of the closet about Cyril Ramaphosa. The biggest skeleton out of that closet is Marikana. He will have to confront that skeleton. The best way to do it, by the way, would be for him to go to Marikana and apologize to the people there and use that platform to apologize to the people of South Africa. Mm-hmm. If he doesn't do it, we must expect this to muddy waters for him.
Mm-hmm. Earlier on, when speaking of President Jacob Zuma, you said that the country has hit the rock bottom. We can't go any lower than this. If you speak to the ANC Secretary General or the Deputy Secretary General, who was delivering the reaction after the ANC decided, after President Jacob Zuma resigned, she mentioned some of the legacy projects of the president. And I seen a statement that was released in the early hours of the morning as well. The presidency also released a similar statement speaking about some of the good work that the president or the former president Jacob Zuma has done, including the National Development Plan, the National Development Commission and so forth. Is it really fair to say that the country has hit rock bottom when you have 17 million people who benefit from a social grant?
Well, the social grant system, by the way, was never introduced by Jacob Zuma in South Africa. So let's put facts on the table. Mm-hmm. And doesn't belong to him personally. This is money that comes from taxpayers, number one. Number two, what Jesse Duarte was trying to do last night was trying to collect scraps of Jacob Zuma's shredded dignity. This is a man who has no dignity at all. But you see, you can't just dump him and not try and find a scrap or two of dignity. Because if you do so, remember, he has supporters and there are leaders in the ANC who are in his camp. So you don't want to destroy those people. You want them you want them to feel good. Mm-hmm. Jessie Duarte is part of those people. She was actually trying to make herself feel good. So you need these people to feel accommodated, because if you dump Jacob Zuma with all his supporters, you are going to create a problem for the ANC electorally.
Should the president at all take credit then, also in this statement from the presidency, should the president take credit for what they call the fight against corruption? I find it quite strange that they'd mentioned that the president said that I will sign up on this commission of no inquiry when it has taken him really that long, considering that you had the public protector's report that was released back in 2016, and there was a pushback from the president to set up that commission of inquiry, and only after President Jacob Zuma and I guess the person that he supported, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, after they've lost out at the elective conference, is a state capture commission of inquiry now instituted as per the elective conference resolution.
Here is the thing. Jacob Zuma refused to institute a commission of inquiry into state capture. That is on record. We have seen him dribbling the South African nation. He only announced the commission when he realized that he was in a political corner. Only that. Let me tell you, I have no doubt in saying Jacob Zuma will go down in history as probably the most corrupt president of South Africa post-1994.
But the thing about calling President Jacob Zuma corrupt over and over again is that we need to realize that he's never been found guilty in a court of law. Yeah. The same way that we can't make the argument that President Jacob Zuma is a rapist because he has been acquitted of that charge. So it doesn't really help the nation making this accusation over and over again when the president hasn't been found guilty in a court of law. Well,
there's Nkandla. He had to pay back the money. What happened in Nkandla?
But there was no corruption on the side of the president.
Number two, there is a constitutional judgment that found Jacob Zuma guilty of violating the South African Constitution. So that's if you want to be technical about it. But if you want to be moral about it, state capture happened under Jacob Zuma. Public institutions such as Eskom, such as Transnet, and so on and so forth, were collapsed under Jacob Zuma. All the looting of public funds in the state that we know of happened under Jacob Zuma. Now, you can't take me that the man at the top doesn't take responsibility for what happens at the bottom.
Mm-hmm. He might take the responsibility, but we can't say that he personally, as Jacob Zuma, is corrupt, right?
Well, maybe we can get out of that corner, but I am saying to you, if you look at everything that happened, if you look at the role of Duduzane Zuma, his son, if you look at the role of Kulubusa, his nephew, if you look at what happened in his family, and all the allegations that are there, really, you have to ignore this mountain of evidence to say this is Mr. Clean.
Unfortunately, we have to wrap up this conversation, but just in a few seconds, what's in the future for the alliance, the ANC alliance, considering that you have the SACP as well as COSATU that have supported Cyril Ramaphosa? Where to from here for them?
They have to go back to the drawing board. The alliance is in tatters as we speak. COSATU split. So they have to go back to the drawing board and try and patch up things and be a united alliance. It's going to be difficult, but it can be done.
I guess the most difficult thing for Cyril Ramaphosa as well is to try and convince the SACP to reverse that decision that they took, that the SACP must contest the elections, as we saw actually during the local government elections or the by-elections that happened in Metsimaholo. Such a mammoth task that Cyril Ramaphosa faced, and also uniting the alliance, but also the ANC, first of all. Let's go to a quick break. But